Sister-in-law convinced herself she was moving into my house without my permission, and when I called the police to remove her, she spread lies to the entire family that I was infertile and jealous of her pregnancy. I don't usually turn to the internet for advice, but I feel like my situation is specific enough that my friends can't help me much. For context, my dad has been with Kathy for a little under 15 years. She's technically his third wife, so she's always been very insecure about her place in his family, which has unfortunately led her to become very needy and histrionic. My daughter is turning 6 in February, and we're planning her birthday party. Last year, my husband and I threw her a Cinderella-themed party at our place. My dad showed up without Kathy, who had claimed to be sick. It didn't bother me, but I remember feeling something was off. Near the end of the party, Kathy showed up in a Cinderella costume. She was acting in character and trying to interact with the kids. Neither me nor my husband had been informed she'd be doing that. At most, she'd asked me whether we were hiring any party performers a few weeks prior. I later found out she'd been planning to surprise my daughter and bought the costume the day she found out what the theme would be. My husband and I are still positive Kathy did this for attention. It didn't really work. My daughter recognized her immediately, but it did disrupt things a little, because she did this around the time the kids were eating cake and some of the parents were getting ready to leave. We managed to sort things out, but it took some time and we still had to deal with a dozen confused preschoolers. It was a great party besides that, and our daughter enjoyed herself, which is what matters most, but my husband and I asked Kathy not to do this again. She agreed and apologized. I'm pretty sure she's planning on doing it again. We spent a lot of time with my paternal family during the holidays, and I noticed Kathy was bringing up Cinderella's appearance at the party very frequently. She was reminiscing, showing pictures and talking about what she'd do differently. She didn't talk to my kids about it much, but she did ask my daughter what theme she wanted for her party this year, and how she'd feel if one of the characters showed up. I really don't want to have to deal with this surprise again, especially if it comes with no warning like last time. We're also throwing this year's party at a venue, not at home, meaning we have a time slot to abide by. My husband and I spoke to Kathy about our concerns. She didn't say she was planning on showing up in costume, but she kept insisting that if she did, the kids would love it and it could be fun. We tried to make her promise she wouldn't do it, but she kept dodging it and claiming she didn't see the problem. Finally, we told her it would be best that she didn't come at all. She can join us for the dinner we're having afterwards, but not the actual party. Now she's upset and my dad is angry at us. He firmly believes we're being paranoid and dramatic. I'm worried we're going too far, but I'm almost certain she is indeed planning on doing it again and I don't want to risk having problems at the party. Ida? Update 1. So, I have a love/hate relationship with being right. My dad called me 2 days after I posted. There's a purple wig at his place that is styled suspiciously similar to Rumi from K-pop Demon Hunters. He opened Kathy's mail thinking it was his and found it. The costume itself is set to arrive in about a week. She wasn't planning on telling him about either. He's claiming they fought, because neither the costume nor the wig were cheap, but he also felt the need to tell me she'd been watching the movie repeatedly to study, and that she cares so much, and that isn't it sweet how much Kathy loves my kids and maybe my daughter would like it this time. That was all I heard before I went to look for a pillow to scream into. I'm done. This made me a lot angrier than it should have, but it isn't the first time someone in my family decides my plans and the effort I put in don't mean shit. And if I can't even plan my own child's birthday party without someone trying to butt in, I don't have to feel bad about drawing the line. Kathy is officially banned from the party. My husband and I have alerted the venue that we didn't hire any character performers, and if any Caucasian-looking Korean pop star shows up they must tell her to go home. We also gave them a picture of her. They basically told us they can't let anyone who's not on the guest list inside anyway, so she won't be allowed. I feel horrible about making them deal with my family drama, but at least that's one less thing to worry about. My dad and I did fight about this, but I put my foot down. He kept arguing that it wouldn't be a big deal if I just let Kathy have this. I told him that's not the point. If he's not the one who's going to have to manage the situation, he doesn't get to tell me how hard it is to do it. In the end, this is what we settled on. My dad can come to the birthday party as long as Kathy doesn't tag along. If she does, they're both out. Both of them can still join us for dinner later. I'm also thinking about lowering my contact with both my dad and Kathy. I love my dad, but no headache is worth this. I want to wait until I'm calmer to work out the details. I want to thank everyone. I've got a lot going on in my life and my therapist is on vacation, so it feels good to rant about this. But for my own sanity, I'm going to focus on relaxing for the next couple of weeks. I already feel much lighter knowing this is over. Update 2. I said I wouldn't update again unless something happened, so you guys can probably guess why I'm back. This might get long. I'll go ahead and say nothing happened at the party itself. It happened on Saturday, and everything went perfectly fine. My daughter loved it, the kids had fun, and we had no problems with the venue. Kathy did not try to come, nor did my dad try to convince me to re-invite her. I had expected him to sulk through the party, but he actually did pretty well. And then we went to the birthday dinner. My dad and Kathy were running so late that the food arrived around the same time they did. Kathy was dressed as Rumi, wig and jacket. My dad was refusing to make eye contact with anyone, very obviously embarrassed. The kids saw them before we did. I knew there was a chance she'd come to the restaurant in costume, but I was more concerned she'd do it at the party. My husband and I had agreed that we wouldn't make a scene in front of the kids, but would step in if things got out of hand. It was very awkward. The kids, 5 in total, including my 3, mostly ignored her. They recognized Kathy and called her by her name, which upset her. They were also not amused by the way she kept trying to get their attention, because she was trying to get them to interact with her while they were either talking to each other or trying to eat. I told Kathy to leave them alone when she started trying to pull my daughter's hand away from her food so they could get up and dance together. She sat there silent for a few minutes before leaving to go to the bathroom. Then she texted my dad that she wasn't feeling well, and they left. In the end, they stayed for less than 20 minutes. People were staring, but that's not something I tend to care about. Besides the few times I cringed, Kathy asked the waitress if they had ramen at Johnny Rockets. Nothing too chaotic happened. Editor's note: according to Google, Johnny Rockets is known for burgers, shakes and fries. I don't get the feeling that they have ramen. Still, I regret not telling her to leave. My husband handled bedtime that night, and our daughter asked him whether it was okay if she didn't like Kathy. She also asked my husband not to tell me that at first, because she didn't want to upset me. The 3 of us ended up talking on Sunday. Our daughter basically said she was upset that Kathy was bothering her and being pushy during the dinner, and she was worried that the kids at the table next to us were looking at her funny because of what was going on. I'm exhausted, and I feel like shit like this happens way too often. It's perfectly fine for them to do what they want as long as I'm the one dealing with the consequences. More than anything, I refuse to let my children be treated this way too. I genuinely don't understand why Kathy insists on behaving like this, but I shouldn't have to worry about whether a grown woman will listen to me when I tell her not to do something at my child's party. A few hours after the talk with my daughter, the kids went out with my mom. I took the opportunity to call my dad and Kathy, and told them she is no longer welcome at any of my children's events. We had an interesting argument, during which Kathy said I had humiliated her when I told her to leave my daughter alone, and she couldn't understand why I was doing this when she was willing to go this far to make my kids happy. My dad and I talked again later that night, without her. He was still defending Kathy, but admitted he was embarrassed when she insisted on wearing the costume. Apparently, that was the reason they were late to the dinner. I told him my decision was final, and if he ever tried to bring Kathy to an event she isn't invited to, they would both be told to leave. We're not officially cutting ties, but my husband and I will make an effort to spend less time with Kathy moving forward. That will probably include lowering our contact with my dad as well, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that might actually help our relationship. In the end, Kathy's shenanigan aside, my daughter really enjoyed her birthday. That's all that really matters. I, once again, want to thank everyone. This is my last post. Comments where Op has replied. Comment 1. Have you told your dad about what your kids said about it? I think if he knows, he'll see that Kathy is doing this only for her sake, not the kids, since they didn't like it either. Oop, I decided not to. I know that if I did, Kathy would fixate on my daughter whenever we saw each other. I didn't want to risk her making my daughter feel suffocated in the future. I don't want my daughter to dislike Kathy, and for all I know, she might completely forget about this in a few months, but her comfort comes first. My dad, and everyone else who was at the dinner, did agree that it was very obvious the kids didn't like it. To another commenter, another big reason why I'm not telling my dad and Kathy. I don't really see any way of telling them that doesn't put an even bigger target on my daughter's back. She told me and my husband that in private, they don't need to know about it. Oop adds, I say she might forget because she's 6. I have to be realistic here. But if she does remember this and decide she still doesn't like Kathy when she's older, she'll be well within her rights too. Comment 2, I have to say that going by your very first post Kathy dressing up as Cinderella towards the end of the party at home, I thought you were overreacting, Op. Having read all your posts, and with the mention that people tend to interfere in your events, I can totally understand your annoyance. Oop, yeah, that was a relatively fair assessment with the amount of detail I gave at first. It's not really just events, there are several areas of my life that people keep trying to butt in. I wasn't allowed boundaries for a while in my youth, and I still have problems related to that with some of my loved ones. Comment 3, There is something seriously mentally unwell with that woman. And your father is an asshole for continuing to encourage it, because by allowing her to leave the house and go out this way is encouraging her behavior. Oop, my dad said they were late to the dinner because they had a fight over it. She put on the costume and refused to take it off. They argued until he gave up and they left for the dinner. None of that surprises me. Kathy's problem, I can't discard anything, but I genuinely think this is more related to her insecurities than anything else. Kathy has been extremely pushy with my paternal family since the start of their relationship. None of us have a close family bond with her, and that clearly gets to her. She's also jealous of my mom, who was my dad's first wife, for a number of reasons, and that got even more obvious when I had my first child. Is it just oops daughter? I don't think she's obsessed with my daughter or my kids specifically. She behaves in similar fashion with most of my paternal family, it's just worse around all the children. My cousin thinks it's because of the way they react to these things. Next story, cousin spent a year making constant digs about my job every time we hung out, so I finally said something and she called me too sensitive. Then when I pulled back she invented a fake viral online post about herself. So I, 22F, have a cousin, I'll call her Mary, 23F, and we used to be genuinely really close growing up. Like our families see each other almost every weekend, we went to the same school for a while, and there was a point where she was honestly my closest friend out of everyone I knew. We told each other everything. But over the past year or so things just started feeling different. Hard to explain at first, like nothing I could really put my finger on, just a vibe I was getting. So a bit of background. I finished college earlier this year and started working a full-time job. Nothing crazy, just a normal office job, but it was a big deal for me personally because I worked really hard to get there. Mary on the other hand is still figuring out what she wants to do, and like I genuinely mean it when I say I have zero judgment about that. Life isn't a race and everyone figures things out at their own pace. I never once made her feel bad about it, or at least I really tried not to. But somewhere along the way she started making these comments. Little things at first that I brushed off as just her sense of humor because she has always been kind of a sarcastic person and I used to find it funny. Stuff like must be nice to already have your life together whenever I mentioned anything work related. Or some of us don't have it easy like you if I talked about weekend plans. She started calling me corporate girl as like a nickname which sounds harmless but the way she said it was always a little sharp. Like there was always just a tiny edge underneath it that I couldn't quite explain to anyone without sounding oversensitive. And it wasn't just once in a while. It became kind of a pattern. If I mentioned being exhausted after a long week she'd say something like try being unemployed and stressed, must be rough having a paycheck though. If I talked about saving up for a trip or something I wanted to buy she'd go of course you can afford it with this little laugh. If I brought up anything about work at all, even just casually in conversation, there was almost always a comment waiting on the other side of it. At first I genuinely just laughed it off every single time because I did not want to be the person who can't take a joke. I kept telling myself she didn't mean anything by it and I was probably just reading into things. But then it started happening in front of other people. Family dinners, group hangouts, once even in front of some people we had just met that night. And something about having it happen in front of others made it feel worse somehow. Like I could feel myself getting quieter every time we were in a group together because I never knew when the next comment was coming and I didn't want to have to laugh it off again in front of everyone. I started kind of dreading hanging out with her which made me sad because this is someone I genuinely love and used to look forward to seeing. Then a few weeks ago we made plans to grab coffee, just the two of us. And within like the first 20 minutes she made a comment about how I've changed since I started working and that I'm too busy for real people now. And I don't know if it was just because I was already tired or because it had been building for so long but something about that one just hit different. So I said something. I kept my voice calm, I wasn't trying to start a fight or make it dramatic. I just told her honestly that the jokes had been piling up and they were starting to feel genuinely hurtful and I'd really appreciate if she could ease up on them. She did not take it well. She got defensive almost immediately and told me I was being way too sensitive and acting like I was better than her. Said she was just teasing and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. The conversation got a little awkward after that and we kind of just moved on, but it felt unresolved. After that I just stopped reaching out to make plans. I still reply to her texts when she messages me, I don't ignore her or anything, but I haven't been the one to suggest getting together or initiate anything like I used to. Well, apparently that did not go unnoticed. My aunt called my mom recently and said Mary is upset, that she feels like I've suddenly gone cold on her and she doesn't understand why I'm being distant. Which I get that it probably does feel that way from her side, but also she kind of never acknowledged what I said at the coffee thing. Now there's a bit of a divide in the family. Some people think I should just brush it off, keep the peace, she was just joking around. Others actually understand where I'm coming from and think I had every right to say something and pull back a little. And I really don't want this to turn into some massive family drama because I do care about Mary and I miss the friendship we used to have. But I also don't want to go back to feeling uncomfortable every single time we hang out and biting my tongue every time she makes a dig. So Ida for slowly pulling back after she kept making those comments, even after I told her how I felt? Update. So, this took a turn I absolutely did not see coming. So yesterday, few hours after my original post, I got a call from Mary. And she was furious. Like immediately yelling the second I picked up. She went off about how I portrayed her wrong on Reddit and how everyone is blaming her and that so many people have read it and now she looks terrible. I was honestly just sitting there confused because my post got some comments, but it wasn't exactly what she was saying. The comments were pretty measured, some people agreed with me, some said to talk it out, nothing crazy. But she kept going. Started listing off all these specific things I apparently said in the post. Except here's the thing, I didn't say half of what she was claiming. She was talking about details that straight up weren't in my post at all. Different scenarios, things I never mentioned, stuff that didn't even happen. That's when it clicked. She wasn't talking about my post. She was either talking about a completely different post she found, or I don't even know. I tried to tell her that, but she wasn't hearing it. She hung up on me. Then apparently she went crying to her mom, my aunt, about how I publicly humiliated her on the internet. My aunt called my mom. My mom was confused because she'd actually read my post. I shared it to her after I got one such comment which felt funny, and it was pretty tame. Then another cousin got involved trying to mediate and actually went looking for the post Mary was describing. He couldn't find anything matching what she claimed. So then there was this whole family group chat thing happening, that I wasn't even in but heard about later, where people were trying to figure out what was going on. And then, and this is the part that honestly made me laugh, Mary apparently let it slip in front of our other aunt that she just did it to get a reaction out of me. The whole viral Reddit post thing. Either she made it up entirely or found some random post that vaguely sounded similar and decided to pretend it was about her too. What? Make me feel guilty? Start drama? Get attention? I genuinely have no idea. The family group chat apparently went silent after that. Or maybe she found my original post and just started exaggerating things. My mom texted me later like, so your cousin is something else, and I just had to laugh because what else can you even do at that point? The funniest part? My actual post is fine. Barely got any traction. Just sitting there minding its business while Mary created an entire fictional drama around it. I don't even know what to do with this information. Part of me feels vindicated because this is exactly the kind of behavior I was talking about in my original post. But another part of me just feels sad because this is so much more unhinged than I expected. I haven't talked to her since. Honestly, don't know if I even want to anymore.